Agri Talk, and on this edition we're going to talk, it's springtime, and we're going to talk about different things we have to do, like pruning and taking care of the things that are going to be ready to grow, trees and shrubs and I guess like elderberries and grapes and different other type of vines. So stay tuned. Glad you could stay with us, and this time it's springtime. Actually, this is the first day of spring. We don't want to date the show too much, but it's the first day of spring.
It's spring in one of these years.
But it doesn't look like spring yet.
Not yet, but it's definitely it's getting there.
2019's been a long, not bad winter, but...
No, it's been nice for us, in a nutshell. I mean, we haven't had snow to speak of or anything like that. We have had some cold weather, which definitely helped.
And rain.
So, yeah.
So rain hasn't been a problem.
So not terrible, but definitely if we would have had some snow, that would have actually helped some of our berry crops to protect the roots and things.
Oh, right.
Without
it
that,
acts as insulation.
Yeah, it acts as a little insulation. So really, when we have those super cold weather, that actually hurts them a little bit without having that on there, unless you've got them mulched good with either some wood chips or straw or something like that. But you got to be real careful when you use certain wood chips. You can't use new, fresh wood chips because it has some different acid in it, and it gets wet and it'll sink down into the ground and have problems. So
you get to watch, even though you're a tech guy, you get to watch all these agricultural things happening at the center.
I do at the center, yeah, absolutely. And we do workshops there, and we just recently did a pruning workshop just the other day. But I know we've done some other workshops, and actually our guest that is with us.
I don't believe I've met him before.
You haven't met our guest?
No.
Well, our guest is Kingsley Meyer. Well, hi, Kingsley. How are you today?
Weekend farmer.
Weekend farmer. Yes, sir. You have a farm as well that we'll talk about some things as well. But I know you came to one of our workshops, not this year, but last year or something.
Grapes, blueberries, brambles.
Yep.
It was a great time.
Yeah.
Very good.
So that's kind of like what we just did this past week. We did more on pruning, though. I think you were in one of the later ones.
There's nothing like professionals showing you how inadequate you are as an individual at home.
Well, everybody's different, that's for sure.
I thought you were Mr. Farmer, and then it's like, oh no,
but,
I'm not worthy.
Yeah, better than some.
Yeah, better than most. There's just a few out there that's oddball. But we did a demonstration, not a demonstration. It's a workshop. So people came, and it was an all-day event. So in the morning they did some classes inside, doing PowerPoints and all this other good stuff, and then afterwards they went out in the field and they did well, we call it brambles. So we include grapes, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, things like that, and then we have some things called aronia, goji berries. Elderberries.
Are goji berries from here, or is that a different
No,
country?
they're not native to here, but we're bringing them in from overseas, kind of. They're what they call a super fruit, if you would. Kind of a better than the normal blueberry for cancer research and things like that. Has more of that antioxidant and stuff.
Hopefully they don't become as super as some of the other plants we've brought over here that have taken over.
Like that multiflora rose stuff that everybody hates.
Right.
Yeah, that was not native at all. Yeah, but but that's the things we're doing. We're raising some, like you said, the goji berries and things like that. We're trying to superfruit stuff.
Do you just eat those raw, or do you?
Variety of ways. Typically, people will cook them up in where we're at. I mean, they'll put them in a pie, or something like that. That's usually where you end up having them. So
you had one?
I have, and let me tell you,
are they tart or sweet?
They're terrible.
They're terrible?
God, they taste bad.
Really?
Oh my God!
Why did we bring them over here?
Because they're, anything that's good for you.
Oh yeah.
Does it ever taste good?
Super fruit.
Yeah.
Bad. Yeah, bad. It's terrible. But I say it's terrible. But you got to get them at the right time. They've got to be just ripe. That's when they have that good, a decent flavor that you can tolerate. It's sort of like a pawpaw. If you ever had a pawpaw early, bad.
Persimmons.
No, well, pawpaws
Okay.
too.
Okay.
When they're ripe, when a pawpaw is good and ripe, tastes like a banana almost. But before that, it's a persimmon. It's nasty. You got to get it right at that time. And so it's like you don't just go to the store and like buy a green banana. Well, it's still a banana. It tastes like a banana. No, this isn't close. To me, anyway. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've brought a few videos that we can we've done there at the center. Talks about some grape pruning and stuff.
I mean, right now is a good time to prune, right?
Right now,
Is this right?
For certain things.
You want to get it before the sap goes up into
Yes.
the plant, right?
Yeah, definitely. So right now, you definitely should be or have already pruned blueberries, and grapes should have been in that neighborhood now, or maybe even a little bit before.
Okay.
Just because of that simple purpose, you don't want to take away the nutrients that's already going up into those plants to produce those flower buds to start the fruit.
You don't want the energy going to healing instead of just You want it to go to leaf making and fruit making.
Yep, exactly. And our local fruit guy there, Dr. Gary Gow, he did the workshop along with some others that came down, and then we have him on. Gary is on our video talking about grapes and a little bit there. So I think we're going to watch a quick video on that.
Okay.
And then we can elaborate on it.
Hi, my name is Gary Gall. I'm with OSU South Centers in Piketon. I'm an extension specialist and also an associate professor. And I have quite a few responsibilities, and one of those is grape production, actually more specifically wine grape production. We have several projects through Ohio Grape Industries program. And however, today I'm going to talk about both wine grape production and table grape production. For the sake of grape production, we have several potential types of grapevines to grow. We may have what's called the Vitis vinifera or Vitis vinifera, depending on which person you talk to. That would be European grapes, and those are quite sensitive to winter injuries. For commercial production, they could be grown in Ohio with protection. However, over the last several years, cold temperatures have caused quite a bit winter injuries on Vitis vinifera grapes. The second large group of grape varieties is what's called French-American hybrids, and I'm holding in my hand a cluster of what's called the Vidal Blanc. It's a hybrid between European grapes and also American grapes. And this is a wine grape variety. It makes a very good white wine. And also folks who have had ice wine before, and this particular cultivar makes excellent ice wine. And then the third group of grape varieties is what's called the American grapes. The varieties that you may or may not be familiar with. One of them is called Concord. When you drive to Niagara Falls from Cleveland to Buffalo area, you can see acres and acres and acres of Concord grapevine. It's a blue grape, and it's being widely grown by homeowners and also commercial grape growers. Well, Concord grape juice, and that's a very common use of Concord grape. You can also make wine out of it, even though the wine quality may not be the best, but it could be used as a wine grape. And some growers, some gardeners and homeowners will also make jams and jelly, and commercial companies and also produce jellies and jams from Concord Concord grapes. If you were thinking about table grape production, most folks would probably select hybrids, and there are quite a few varieties to select from. And on my left-hand side, it's kind of hard to see right now because all of the fruits were either harvested or they didn't have any to begin with this year because these are very young vines. And two good varieties for both commercial production and the home gardens are Jupiter and Saturn, and they are very, very sweet, and they are pretty well, quite tolerant of most of our diseases, fungal diseases. But the one main thing we're looking at is winter hardiness. They have to be able to survive our cold, cold temperatures in Ohio. So those two are my top recommended varieties. If you were to try to grow a few more varieties of grapevines, I would say Mars seedless, which is a blue grape, and it's very, it looks like Concord, and it doesn't taste as good as Concord, but it's much more disease resistant or much less disease susceptible than Concord. In terms of production techniques, as you can tell, I'm standing in front of a vineyard. The first thing you notice is they are grown on a trellis. Grapes, grape bushes or plants, and they're definitely a vine. So you have to put them on the trellis. And what we have here is called high cordon bilateral system. So you have one or two main trunks, and then you have cordons or permanent arms going each way. So it's called single cordon or high cordon system, bilateral system. And this is what it looks like. And you can get all the branches up high, so which will make it easier to prune, make it easier to spray. And so trellis is a must for grape production. And then you can see on my right-hand side, we have this white netting. Birds definitely love grapes as much as we do. So, for both commercial production and the home garden situation, you need to have some kind of netting. Otherwise, birds will eat you out of business. And then grapevines are not terribly difficult to grow, and they do get a few diseases and a few insects. In terms of insects, Japanese beetles are a major pest, and so we have insecticides for that. And it's a good idea to spray kind of early, as soon as you see the first Japanese beetle. Hopefully that will keep the insect under control. Diseases, and they can get downy mildew, black rot, and then also powdery mildew. So fungicide sprays are very, very helpful. And then in terms of pruning, that could be pretty complicated. So that could be a separate video by itself. And so we also have programs in winter, typically in March, where we talk about pruning, and actually we'll come out here and we'll do a practical demonstration to show folks how to prune grapevines. And this is about all we have on grape production, and hopefully we'll have more videos so you can watch and on other aspects of grape production.
That was Gary Gao from Ohio State South Centers, and pretty and knowledgeable guy.
Yeah. He's been with us for quite a while, doing, like I said, all these different fruit crops. And like I said, we just went through some pruning that we'll have some video of actual pruning demonstrations. This was kind of give you the nuts, the end result of what you have, maybe some varieties. But this pruning was real good. We'll have those up.
Why do you prune?
Well, because you don't want to. When you prune, you cut back all of the stems, so one plant doesn't have, say, we're going to pick a number and say 50,000 grapes. Because when one plant can't produce 50,000 grapes really good, you'll just have little pea-sized grapes.
Okay.
So if you cut that back so the nutrients gets better, then
More
you have
concentrated.
nice grapes, more sweeter. That's not a right word. Better.
It is now.
It's better now. Yeah, this is not an English class. They get better. You're able to sell that crop. You get more of a profit, whether you're eating them or you're selling them to eat. You get a higher dollar and things like that. If you never prune, they're going to look shabby, and you're just going to get little teeny grapes. And this goes with just about any fruit crop. If you don't keep thinning them back, you're eventually not going to have any fruit crop that's worth anything. And that's even with strawberries to a degree. And that's, that's not a bramble or something, but in a nutshell, that's the same way. If you have matted row, we'll just talk about matted row real quick. Matted row strawberries, and if they just come back and reproduce year after year after year, you'll notice that strawberry keeps getting a little smaller and a little smaller and a little smaller. If you don't do something to thin them out a little bit, because your ground isn't, you're not keeping enough nutrients.
There's a specific amount of nutrients
Yeah.
to produce a certain amount of fruit.
Right, and that plant, if it never gets thinned out, that's why you'll pull the suckers off or something. Am I right at that, Kingsley? That's what they're calling them, the sucker vines off of them. So that one plant can produce those, we'll just call it 10 strawberries, really well. Versus if you never pull off those vines, it'll have 30 or 40 strawberries on there, and that plant can't hold that much. So that's why they have
every plant needs access to the nutrients, water, and sunlight.
Yep.
If it's too crowded, it's not going to be able to produce.
That's right.
If you have too much growth, you're not going to be able to provide enough for that individual plant. But the runners on a strawberry are a great way to propagate.
Yeah.
I know, the extension has worked with seeded
Yep.
strawberries, but we always would take the runners and then start them.
Yep.
And then we would take out the older plant and then just reset those runners in there so that we had a fresh new plant and allow that to grow for a while before we then take it out.
So have you been pruning grapes and trees and such?
I've been taking care of a lot of trees. I started off with apple trees, and what I found was that I was pruning them so heavily to try to get a particular growth, and I had a lot of suckers on it, the shoots that go straight up, that I wasn't getting fruit set.
Yeah.
Because the apple tree grows on a spur on older wood, and so you have to have older wood in order for the fruit to grow. Too much, you get smaller fruit, but you have to have just enough. So I am in a 2 or 3 year moratorium not to prune my apple trees. Then I'm going to go in there and I will take out all of the big vertical shoots and then restructure it. But grapes, yes. Blueberries, yes. Strawberries, we didn't cover this year, and they thinned themselves out. So we have fewer, but they're going to be just fine. Last year we had way too many in there.
Yeah.
But
And that's the simple principle. You have too many in there, they'll just not produce very well, or die. One of the two. Yeah.
But we attended the workshop on blueberries, and I got a lot of good information out of that. The one thing that I don't do that I should is to have an irrigation system so that I can combat the heat that is produced by my fabric, because it gets hot. And over at Piketon, they were growing them in containers above the ground, moving them into a hoop house in the winter to protect them from the freeze. But then they would have a drop line, and then they were able to use the irrigation to make sure that didn't dry out.
Yep.
And so I have a lot of wood chips. I did not know about the fresh wood chips.
Fresh wood chips is not necessarily a good thing.
Now you said acid, though. We know that blueberries are an acid-loving plant.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the wrong acids, I guess.
Yeah, it's that
Not just
among
the
some
soil.
other things that are
Okay.
in there. I just know that it'll produce too much at like one time.
Okay.
And then some other nutrients, or not nutrients, some type of poison that will hurt the plant.
Probably preservatives or
Yeah.
colorings and different things.
Yeah, because you never know what you're going to get at a wood yard if you go there and get chips. So you want to make sure it's not fresh sawdust or things like that. You
I
want
get
that to lay out for a
right-of-way
year.
companies to drop off
Yeah.
their trucks. They back up, they dump it, and then the chickens scratch through it, and we
Yeah.
grab
Right.
the wood chips and put it for walkways and put it
Yeah.
out there for mulch.
Yeah, yeah. And
When's the right
probably
time to fertilize? Am I too late for fertilizing?
your fertilizing will be well. Yeah, you could do some now, but here in the next month you'll want to start that process.
Okay.
For that, just so to get that nutrients going and build up really good.
I'll probably start with some some light triple 12, just to make sure that I haven't washed out my soils. I've got a very heavy clay-based soil, so it holds the nutrients pretty well versus having a sandier soil that leaches out.
Yeah. Well, I know we've got time for one more video, and we brought goji berries. For anyone that hasn't heard of goji berries, it's a type of superfruit, and so we've got a video on those. A little more again later on in the season because we've just started growing them just about 2 years ago. So our plants aren't really tall, but they're just doing real little pruning on those. So we don't have a good pruning demonstration on those. But this is to give you a good sense of what a goji berry is and how to start taking care of it. And then we'll have some pruning on that next.
Hi, my name is Gary Gall. I'm an extension specialist and associate professor with OSU South Centers in Piketon. As you can tell, well, some of you may or may not know about this particular plant. This is a very new plant. It's called the Chinese goji berry, and some folks call this a wolfberry. It's a very interesting plant, and in the U.S. It's still a very new crop. Some gardeners have started planting them in their home landscape, and they treat it as more of a health food, which is part of our superberry project. And then this crop is really not new in China. There are tens and thousands of acres of Chinese goji berries in northwest China. And actually, when you go to some of the health food stores in the U.S., and you can buy dried goji berries, and they are known to provide lots of health benefits. And as you can tell, right now it's mid-September in Ohio. And this plant can actually produce fruits all season long, and all the way from, I would say, June-ish to about frost. And you see some of the red berries. It is a true berry. It's actually related to tomatoes and peppers, and more than our fruit crops. These plants were planted this year, and they're still coming along. And goji berries really prefer rocky soils and very perfect drainage. In this part of Ohio, in Piketon, we really don't have perfectly drained soil, so we created raised beds to improve the soil drainage. And they're still coming along. For a while, we were wondering whether they are going to make it. But anyway, goji berries, and they produce these little kind of orange to reddish berries. Most of our varieties are red, but there is also a type of goji berries that's black. And you may or may not be able to see this, and actually they do have these little purplish flowers. That looks pretty interesting. But fruit-wise, and when they are ripe, they're supposed to be red, and when they are half ripe, and they're kind of more orangish. If you have good drainage in your garden, you can grow it very well. And if you want to grow this as a commercial crop, you definitely wanted to either plant them in more like a sandy, loamy soil, or you have to build raised beds. There are many different different varieties available in the market. If you just buy straight goji berries, seedlings, and the fruit quality may or may not be that great, and so it's good to buy known varieties. The variety that we have is called Crimson Star. It's supposed to be the leading Chinese goji berry variety in northwest China, and since these are just newly planted, so we are still trying to figure out how to grow them, and hopefully next year they will be much more productive. And then goji berries are known to have antioxidants, since they are more related to peppers and tomatoes, and so they would probably have more carotenoids than anthocyanins, if they have any anthocyanins at all. So it's an interesting crop to grow, and hopefully we'll have more growers growing them in the future, and gardeners can easily grow them in the home garden.
So is Gary planning to make some goji berry wine?
Well, it'd be interesting to see what that tastes like.
Yeah, that was extremely dry, or what?
It might be a little tart tasting. I don't know, but it'd be interesting to try. But we've got a lot of other stuff like that, and like I said, we're working on a lot of pruning videos right now that we'll have here, maybe on the next show.
Tis the season.
Yep, absolutely. And then we're also following some of our new crops that we have out there, and it's hardy kiwi. We have a pawpaw patch that we did an earlier show on that we were just planting, so maybe we can follow up with that. And then we're also going to have, I captured some video on some of our aquaculture. We just harvested some ponds with perch to bring them in and do, to get the ribbons from them because it's spawning season now. So maybe we can bring that up and follow that up with some a new aquaculture thing we're doing. Yeah. So.
And you've got other videos you can find at
Yep.
South Centers and on RGCA TV now.
Absolutely. Yep. So I think we're about out of time, Mike. So I guess maybe until next month we'll be back with some more information on ag in general. So stay tuned.
Thanks for watching Ag Talk.